Well, hey there, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Learn BMX Racing. This episode is a review of Bellflower BMX in Bellflower, California. I'm actually really excited to do this review because I really like this track, but it's kind of far away from me, so I don't get the chance to ride here that often. But, as with all the reviews, let's start out with a map of showing you exactly how to get here. So first thing we want to do is come to the website Learn BMX Racing, click on BMX Racetracks, and go to Map of United States BMX Tracks. And this shows you every single BMX track in the entire country. So to make it a little bit easier, let's click right here and we'll go full screen on the map. And if we zoom in to California and Los Angeles, we can see that Bellflower is pretty much right in the smack dab center of South Central LA. It is just east of Compton. It's pretty much just north of Long Beach and northwest of Disneyland, and it is south of downtown and Pasadena and Glendale. So if we zoom in a little closer here, you can see that Bellflower is surrounded on all four sides by highways. So you have the 105 and the 91 running east to west. Then you have the 710 and the 605 running north and south. So at some point you will probably be on one or two of those highways. If we come in a little closer, you can see here that the facility in this green area is really huge. It's actually about 20 acres. Now the closest main intersection is right here at Somerset and Lakewood Boulevard. And right here is the driveway that lets you into the facility. Now this says Hollywood Sports Paintball and Airsoft Park, and so if we switch to the satellite view, you can see that, yeah, this is an enormous paintball arena, basically. And way down here in the corner is Bellflower BMX. So you basically come into the driveway right up here, you drive all the way down, you make this kind of left-hand jog, and you could see here the parking lot. And there's all these parking spaces, right, in this concrete parking lot, and then you have the track right here. Now, this kind of makes it look like the track is asphalt. It's not. The track is entirely dirt, but they actually cover the track in tarp every time like it rains or something, right, to protect the dirt. So that's what I think that this is showing here in this satellite image. This is not asphalt. That's why you see all these little dots in here. I think these are like rocks weighing down the tarp that's covering up the track. Standing on Somerset and looking towards the west, towards Lakewood Boulevard, we can see right here the Hollywood Sports entrance sign. And right there you can see that black car going into the entrance. And here you can see a white car coming out of the exit. Now, if you notice, looking in the opposite direction, the Hollywood Sports sign is colored differently on the western side of the sign. And here you can see vehicles pulling into the sports complex. And right there again, we can see the sign, and we see this long line of cars as it heads down to the toll booth. And at the toll booth is where you pay your parking fee. But if you want to go to the BMX track, you come all the way down to the corner. So here you can see the toll booth way off in the distance, and you would drive all the way down this entire length of this driveway, and you pass this kind of green fence there on your left-hand side, and you make this left-hand turn, and this parking lot is for the BMX track. Looking all the way down at the end of this parking lot, as we zoom in here, you can see the entrance, or one of the entrances, to the actual BMX track. So all the way down there, you can see that there's a fence on either side, and there's a space in between. There's all those ease-ups in there, and that's one of the entrances. And right here, we're standing a little closer. The entrance is on the right-hand side there. And to the left of that entrance is the sign-up booth here in this kind of gray metallic building. So it's a really nice kind of sign-up booth. It's really classy. It looks like something at any kind of amusement park or theme park. And right here to the right-hand side, through that space next to the sign-up booth, that leads back to the snack shop. But we'll show you that a little bit later. Now here, again, this is a shot of the entrance through the fence that is kind of right behind the start hill. Okay, and you can see that like little kid running through there. And if we come to the right of that, you can see there's another break in a fence. This is a break in the outside fence that's like right behind that white barricade. And you see those cars that are parked outside the fence? So that is overflow parking for these really large race events. So if you do park outside the facility, outside of this tree line, you will be parked out here. You see where all these cars are at, and then here's the tree line, so you can walk along this tree line, and then you come in through this entrance right here, this break in the fence. So like I said, this is just for big races. Ordinarily, this part isn't open. So right here, we're inside the facility, and pretty much straight behind that blue pole where that kid's coming in on his bike, that's the space in the fence. And then here we see the staging area where everyone is all setting up to do practice. And then, of course, right behind the staging area there, we can see the start hill for the track. So this should kind of orient you through the parking lot and into the sign-up booth and staging area. As you walk from the parking lot area through the fence into where the track is actually at, as you can see all these people doing right here, as you come over to the right-hand side of that opening in the fence, you can see right here is the moto board. So right there where it says Bellflower BMX Racing, that's where all of the motos get posted. And they have some artificial turf kind of underneath there, which really helps because when you have a whole bunch of people gathering, it kind of cuts down on the dust. And then right here, as we pan over, we can see that the staging area and the back side of the start hill is sort of right there, right next to the moto boards. And then here we can see the moto board once the motos are actually posted. On a big race day like this, they end up just posting them all along the fence like that. And so that's where you get your motos. One really odd thing about Bellflower that everybody mentions the first time they come here is this. The back end of the starting hill is incredibly steep. I don't know why they built it that way, because they did have plenty of room that they could have made it longer, but man, it definitely stretches out your Achilles as you're walking up that starting hill, and everybody mentions it. This walkway between the staging area and these ease-ups on the right-hand side, this part can get really, really dusty between all the people walking and kids like skidding on their bikes. But today actually wasn't too bad because it was kind of overcast, it was a bit humid, and that really kind of kept the dust down in this area.
Hey. How you doing, man?
Good, are you?
Doing good.
Cool. Yeah, I have no idea who that guy was, but that happens to me a lot. You meet so many people doing BMX, and now that I started creating these videos, it's like people come up to me because they'll recognize me and stuff, and
people know me.
I don't know who some of these people are, but I just say hello back and just be nice to them. But yeah, I'm not sure who that guy was. So here we're getting ready to take a lap around the track and kind of see what it's like to wait here in the staging area and the very, very steep backside of the start hill at Bellflower. The start gate at Bellflower is really good. It's really grippy, it's really nice, and the bike is very stable on it. And I gotta say, one thing that I have always loved about just being at a BMX track is that opening cadence. There's something about it as the gate drops. It always makes me feel like I'm getting on a roller coaster at an amusement park.
Here, random start. Riders, ready. Watch the angle. Mike, when the last place rider gets out of first turn, drop it. So it's 2 more. Okay, riders, random start. Riders ready, watch the gate.
You can see here just to the left of the start hill is actually the Strider track. And that was actually the old finish line. It actually came through that way on the first layout of the track. But we'll show you that a little bit later when we go over the history of the track. But now we're going to take a full lap from a point of view, so we can come down here through the 30-foot line. We got a little bit of flat, and then we got this kind of triple step up, step down. Right here is another kind of step up, step down, and then a step down into the first turn. And we come out of that into a double, and then a bit of flat, and then another double with kind of a step down roller on the end. And then here's another double. Here is a triple, kind of triple step up, step down into the second turn. Coming out of the second turn, we head into the rhythm section. So we have a heck of a lot of rollers here. And they're all very, very steep, too. It's a very deep track. And then we come around the last turn, and that brings us up this double and another double, and then a little roller, and then a tabletop, and then we cross the finish line. And as you circle over to the right-hand side, you come right back to the start hill. So that is the full lap of the track at Bellflower. So let's cover that again, but we'll go a little bit more slowly this time, taking a little walking tour. It's always one of my favorite things to review on these tracks. So again, it's just a little bit of flat, and then comes into this first kind of step up, step down kind of jump. It's this Bellflower does have some very unusual kind of jumps in it, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's kind of cool that it's a little different. Right here again, you can see it's kind of like a step up jump, or it's almost like a step up into a double, which comes down into like a step down that goes right into the first turn. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe some of these jumps because they're very unusual. But like I said, it's a good thing. I think it's really cool that it's laid out this way. So coming out of that first turn, we had a few kids go down there, it looked like, but they all got up and were fine. So here we have just a plain old double, then a little bit of flat, and then comes into another double, but off the back of this double you can see there's kind of a step down right there on the back side of that double. So what is that? Is that a triple, or is that a double with a step down? I don't know. You could kind of phrase it and describe it a few different ways, right? So right here, that's pretty distinctly a double, but it's not very deep, so it's like almost a tabletop. And then right here we have a triple, but the middle of the triple is actually higher than the two ends. So again, you could say it's a triple step up, step down. And then here we're coming into the second turn. And now we're circling around into the rhythm section. So the layout of this track is basically like a nested U. That means that these straights, especially that first and second straight, are extremely long. And this rhythm section is fairly long as well. So again, it's kind of difficult to tell from the perspective of this video, but you can see a little bit when you've got the kids on the track that these are very deep rollers. It's my legs are they're just beat by the time I get to the end of the rhythm, especially. But it's really, really cool. Like the transitions and the angles, the geometry of all the rollers are really nice. So it's really smooth. And then we come there into the final turn. And the final turn sends us into another double right here. And then coming out of that double, we have kind of a step up. And you can see, again, that one's pretty steep coming off the back side of it. And then there's a step down. There's kind of a roller, really, and then a plain old tabletop. And then get to the finish line. So a really cool track. It's kind of very technical track with a lot of neat sort of designs in their jumps. Let's take a closer look at the surface of the track. So you can see this is an entirely dirt track. This is actually the second turn, and they do an excellent job of maintaining the dirt. It's really smooth. It's really nice. It actually has been glued. So this track is glued. It is soil tacked. But one of the things I really love is the fact that they didn't overdo it. So it still very much feels like a regular dirt track. As you zoom in here and we see the close-up of the dirt, you can see where the crust is kind of broken up in a few places. And that's usually a pretty telltale sign that something has been glued, because it gives the surface kind of a clay sort of feel. And it's really great. Like I said, this I think is a great way to handle a track, because it's very smooth, but you don't feel like you're racing on concrete or asphalt. It's still a good old dirt track. And right here we can see some of the volunteers who are maintaining the track and doing a good job of keeping that turn in such good shape. Throughout the race, they were constantly watering and making sure that there's just enough moisture. That's an important thing in BMX. You want just enough moisture that it doesn't get dusty and doesn't start to crumble apart, but you don't want it to be a bunch of, mud either. So having it just wet enough that the dirt stays a nice consistency. So when this video was created, the track operator at Bellflower was Tammy Estep. Now, Tammy doesn't really like being on camera, but let's see if we can get her to say a few things. Maybe. Here we have Tammy walking around the facility and making sure that everything's running good and everybody has what they need. And I actually did get her to say a few words right here inside the sign-up booth. If you walk around the right-hand side of the sign-up booth and you go around to the back, you can see right here is the doorway that goes into the snack bar. And the snack bar kind of clubhouse at Bellflower is pretty amazing. I mean, you can see right here all the stuff, stickers and photos and things they have stuck on the door. And there's a few things right here on the other side of the doorway. And if we go inside, I mean, gosh, when I shoot these videos, I try to cover everything that's in the clubhouse. But as you can see here, I really couldn't do that at Bellflower, because it would take up 20 minutes of the video just looking at all this. There is so much stuff in here. And this is one of the things I think is really, really cool, is all the jerseys that they have hanging from the ceiling. It looks really neat, but it's also very unique. Of all the tracks that I've been to, this is something that I've never seen anyone else do. And I just thought that was a really cool idea, that they get jerseys donated from riders and then hang all those up. And then right here, again, there's so much stuff on the walls, but let's cut to some footage of Tammy talking about it and let her explain a little bit about what's going on here in the clubhouse at Bellflower.
So this is what we call, this is all of our Bellflower local riders. And then on this wall over here, we did some of the, kind of we called it our wall of fame. You'll see the Legends poster, you'll see some other local stuff. My biggest pride is my jersey though.
Here's another shot of a bunch of the jerseys hanging from the ceiling, and I used a different camera for these shots, and so we got a little bit different kind of look on the lighting. And since Tammy said that was the thing she was the most proud of, I thought I'd get another shot of it. And then back there in the corner, you can see some bikes hanging on the wall. They actually do have loaner bikes here for new riders. They have some loaner bikes and some loaner equipment. They don't have a heck of a lot of it, but they do have a little bit if you're new to BMX and need something like that on your first trip to Bellflower.
We did some events. We did for Sam Willoughby. These are all the pros that came out, and we did some stuff for Sam Willoughby. We did an event for Paul Wassenaar when he was diagnosed with cancer. These are all the pros. This is a while ago, but you'll see we have some top names here.
Cool. Speaking of the fundraising that they do at Bellflower, this is a local rider named Frank Godfrey. He actually had a write-up even in Pull magazine, and he passed away a few years ago. And they actually have this little kind of garden area that they're making at Bellflower for him. And I unfortunately never met the guy, but I've heard nothing but good things about him from all the people that knew Frank.
So we're still working on the garden. It's a work in progress, but yeah, it'll be. Frank was our number one. I mean, I can't say anything bad about Frank.
Can we have 2 helmets? Because we
Oh yeah, come on, I'll get you one. Okay.
And with that, duty calls. But I really appreciate Tammy taking the time to give us a little background about the track and about racers and volunteers like Frank. And speaking of the volunteers, that's one of the big strengths of Bellflower. They have a huge crew of volunteers who help out and keep the track running smooth. And, you know, it's such a cliche to say it, but it's true that in BMX, this stuff just wouldn't happen and these facilities wouldn't run as well as they do if it wasn't for all these people who give of their time and volunteer to help out and keep everything going, you know. So here's a bunch of photos of a bunch of the volunteers that have been helping out there over the years, and really appreciate all those people pitching in. Speaking of the volunteers, you can see here that the announcer's booth is actually right next to the starting gate, so the announcer has a really clear shot of who's beginning the race.
In the train number 2, Cavalier trying to take a peek. Pancake, hold on to it.
On the other side of the announcer's booth, the announcer can see a really clear shot of the finish line as well, so that's really kind of cool.
Cavalier going right on the outside, down the front of the straightaway. Still step 1 of Ryan Caballero. Jackson picking up that 2. Good job, Casey. Aaron.
Not only are the grown-ups great volunteers, but the kids are really great volunteers too. Like this little girl who's sweeping the track for the Strider riders during their practice.
Rider practice going on in the middle section. All right, we'll get our Pro-Am guys out here shortly.
Run, Nene, say make it up that hill. Run, Nene. Run.
One thing you'll see done at a lot of BMX tracks is they will actually run Strider races on maybe part of the last straight of the main track. So there is a separate Strider track that they use like throughout the week, but then at these bigger races, they give the little kids a chance to try out the big track. Here we can see the Strider track, and as you can tell, the little start hill of the Strider track is right next to the start hill of the main track. And the Strider track is also, just like the main track, kind of a nested U shape. So it's kind of a bigger U on the outside and then a smaller U or V shape on the inside. So this little piece of the facility where the Strider track is at, as I mentioned earlier, this is actually where the finish line used to be for the main track. So you would come underneath that bridge section there for the finish. Being a respectable all-American track, Bellflower does play the national anthem before big races, but unfortunately I was completely unprepared and only caught the tail end of it on video. We've covered a lot on Bellflower, but let's go over a little bit more to kind of orient you to things. So right there on the right-hand side of the screen, we can see the track, and we're walking now along the fence that sort of borders the start hill and the finish line. And then as we come up here a little further, you can see there's this kind of metal sort of gantry thing that is another entrance into the track area. And you can see the start hill is right there on the other side. And now as we whip around here, you can see right there is the podium where you can take pictures of your first, second, and third place. And over this way, we can see that beige building there on the left-hand side. That is where the restrooms are located. And all of that is kind of overlooking these little ease-ups, and we can see the bleachers and things right here. There's about 3 sets of bleachers that are overlooking the first straight. And the interesting thing about this is that as you get further and further down this way, you start to see more and more of the kind of paintball airsoft facility where they have all of these like old army tents and these kind of abandoned building looking things back here. It's really kind of cool, and it's of course really unusual and adds to the whole atmosphere of the place, because there aren't many BMX tracks that have old military barracks as a part of the facility. Standing near that first set of bleachers, you can see the beginning of the start hill, and then you can see that metal truss that kind of goes into the actual track area. And then as we come over a little further, if you look off in the distance there, you can see that there is the snack bar, right, which is the back side of the sign-up booth. And as we come back out, as we pull out from the snack bar, as you go over to the right-hand side, there's actually another kind of whole area that's behind these ease-ups that you really can't see. But there's a whole area back there where you can actually set up more ease-ups and people just kind of hang out back there. And then as we zoom in here to the beige building, you can see that's where the restrooms are located. So hopefully that kind of, orients you to things a little bit better too. All right, so right here, we're like directly behind the snack booth. And as you can see, there's a ton of bike racks in this section. There's also a few bike racks that are located right near the bleachers. But yeah, massive, massive amount of bike racks at this BMX track. And then as we pan over to the right, you can see there's other like old military stuff that's kind of there, which again sort of adds to the vibe of the place and is kind of neat, and it's kind of interesting. And then back here, where you see this sign where it says "Welcome to Raccoon City," and you see that kind of wheelchair ramp that's coming up, sort of snakes up in front of where the camera's looking. That area back there, you can see a bunch of people have a bunch of ease-ups, and it's kind of a nice sort of quiet spot away from all the noise of the track. So if you kind of wanted a quieter area to hang out, right there, directly in front of us, that again is the beige building with the restrooms on the lower floor. For those of you who don't race and you just show up to watch, let's give you a view of the bleachers so you know the kind of view you'll be getting. So there's a couple sets of bleachers here. I believe there's like 3 or 4, and they're in a good location here right along the edge of the first straight. So you actually do get to see quite a bit. Right there you can see the starting hill very easily, and you can see the start gate, and you can also get a look of the finish line. Of course, it is a little difficult to see the second straight because that's the furthest thing away from you at this point, but nevertheless, pretty good vantage point from up here on any of the bleachers, and it's really a great spot to see the start of the races. If you're shooting video from this area of the track, from along the bleachers, And you can zoom in from here. You can give you an idea right here of sort of what that's going to look like. So I'm kind of standing near the truss entrance to the track. So you can see right here, I can't see that back side of the first turn really well. But you can, zoom in onto the second straight and get a pretty good view of that. You can see most of the second turn. And then the rhythm section, that shows up quite well, and you can get a good shot of the rhythm section from here.
Come on, guys,
and
go a little bit faster.
Here I'm going to follow out some of the riders there on the first straight again. Follow them back to the final straight and crossing the finish line. So it is a pretty good vantage point to see quite a bit of the track. Another very popular area for parents and spectators to watch the races is right here in that space between the final straight and the rhythm section. So you can see right there on the kind of right-hand side of the screen, right next to the finish line. This is also a pretty good spot, and a lot of people will gather in there, as you can see from this shot, and that allows you to get a really clear view of the finish line and also a very clear view of the rhythm section. About the only thing that you can't really see too well from that area is, I would say, like the first turn. You can't see that too well, but everything else shows up really good. Right here, I'm standing on that kind of second floor balcony level that is right above the restrooms. And one thing that really stands out, in my opinion, from this clip is just how rural this track feels. It's really cool to me that this track is right in the middle of the heart of Los Angeles, and yet it kind of feels like you're out in the woods, you're out in the country somewhere, because there's so many trees, and the entire track is surrounded. Like, you have that second straight with all those cypress trees in the back there, which kind of just blocks out everything. And it's kind of like being in Disneyland, where you just feel like you're in a completely different place, and it doesn't feel like you're right in the middle of the city. It's really kind of cool. Let's take a quick look at the satellite history of the track. So here's the track as it exists today in 2022. Incidentally, this is kind of wild. If you look really close there at the second straight, you can actually see a group of people standing on the track. So it looks like this satellite photo may have been taken at the same time that a group photo was being taken at the track. It's kind of wild. Back in 2018, you can see the track was a little bit longer because that second and third straight went all the way down into the corner. And then in 2014, there was actually a little tree that was there in that corner. In 2009, it was more of an M-shaped track. In 2004, well, that satellite photo is pretty awful, so let's go to 2003, where it's a little bit clearer. But you can see that in 2003, it again was a nested V shape, or a nested W shape, or not W, it's a nested U shape, I should say. But you can see it runs the opposite ways, so the track actually ended, the finish line was actually underneath that bridge, that kind of gantry that goes next to the start hill. And then in 1994, there was no track, so the track was created sometime between 2003 and 1994. One thing I like to do with every single review video is to measure out the entire distance of the track, because that's one of those things that, people are often curious about. Like, how long is this track? And people are just kind of guessing, and nobody ever seems to really know. So by doing this, we're coming down the second last straight, we're going into the last turn, we can find out the exact length of Bellflower, which is approximately 1,121 feet. Here's our summary of Bellflower BMX and all the details you need to know on where it is and when they run their races. And as I always mention in these videos, please make sure that you double check all of this information before you go to the track. For example, this video that I shot was on a really long weekend where they were doing these huge weekend races, and as a result, well, they were actually closed on their normal Monday night. So make sure that you check ahead of time, look on social media, contact the track, and be certain that they are actually going to be open during these hours before you just head on out there. Here's something I wanted to share that I thought was very interesting, and it kind of shows why I'm really excited to share this video with you. So if we come to YouTube and we search for Bellflower BMX, you'll notice that there really aren't very many videos on this track. Here's one that's 48 seconds, here's one that's about a minute, here's one that's a minute 35. You know, it's very, very odd to me that a track that has been around for so long and that has so many people showing up has really never been showcased in any videos other than these really brief things. So I'm really excited to share this and have this out there for you guys to watch, because this is one of the only videos that really tells you a heck of a lot about Bellflower BMX. Well, thank you so much for checking out this episode of Learn BMX Racing. Now you should know everything that you need to know about Bellflower BMX. And when you are racing out here, don't forget that your good old days are happening right now.